Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. This is an episode with Chris Sewall, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order. We talked about that, and we actually had several rounds of dueling questions, which I've broken up into bite-sized chunks. This is one of them, and I hope you enjoy them. I hope my sponsors enjoy them. Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication, ComC.com, Burbank Sports Cards, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Topps, Upper Deck, and Panini. So thanks, Chris. Thanks, listeners. Here it is. Okay, when you're in collections, have there come times when you've bought enough collections of a certain type that you've noticed things that aren't in the price guides or in the established knowledge of cards being tougher or easier?
Oh, interesting.
In other words, you're looking at the book, but you're saying, you know what? I'm seeing an awful lot of this card. I'm never seeing this card. And it's not explicable by the hometown or any player thing. Because I did that when in the 70s when I was buying collections. That's how I noticed that, hey, these cards are probably short prints. And I would go get my buddies that had uncut sheets and things like that and figure out, yes, indeed, it is a short print.
So I don't use any sort of price guide for pricing purposes anymore. So in terms of that, I would say no, but there's many cards where people just throw them in their common bins. And I know there's something to this card. It's a very small niche of people who want it, but there's a niche who really want it. And a lot of them get thrown away because they're commons or something. Actually, a recent example is a football, I think it's 2009 Bowman Matt Slater. He's like a complete common, you would think, but he's actually like a special teams star for the Patriots. And most people have just thrown away his card so that you can't really find them. But if you do find one, they can sell for $10 raw or $100 if it's a PSA 10. And again, this is a card that usually is in common bins. There's a lot of examples like that.
But you're not looking in commons bins. You're buying out a dealer that has a commons?
No, but most of what I buy is personal collections. So most personal collections have piles of commons included in it.
So you screen them?
If I think there's a potential card to find. If it's 1991 Donruss, then I'm not screening it. But yeah, for example, 86 Fleer baseball. I know the 86 Fleer Mickey Hatcher where he has that big glove. Most people would just assume that's a common. That thing sells for $10. So I'll just flip through it, find it real quick and pull it out. There's a lot of that sort of thing.
Are you putting it on eBay or ComC or?
That would go to ComC. Yeah. Huge fan of ComC. I really wish ComC had existed when I was a collector.
I agree. ComC is the best place, not for everything, but for certain things. It's a great fit. And that's kind of stuff I in the dollar box. If I find a Mickey Hatcher with a big glove, yeah, I'll too. But you can't look through a dollar box or a quarter box or any box looking for one card. You have to have
no.
Huge list of cards, but that would be one of them. Although Rich Klein would beat me to it. Because those are the kind of things he picks up on.
Okay. So I actually asked this to you at the National, and you gave a great answer, but I didn't have time to follow up. How did you determine which cards were like short prints and which series were shorted? What I did ask you at the National was, did you get that information from Topps? And you said no, Topps didn't know.
Topps got that information from us.
That's what I was getting at. So I assume it's the same sort of thing. You got it from dealers, but what was the process of figuring out like a 1961 Topps Moose Scourin is a short print? And why would that potentially?
I've handled a lot of 61 Topps on things, basically. But in statistics, if you take statistics course, the null hypothesis is that there's no effect or everything is random. But when you keep seeing data that suggests, hey, there's Scourin's missing or one of those other guys in that series, you're thinking, okay, you're going to dig a little deeper. You're going to say, is there enough evidence? It's like I said, I would check with somebody. I would say, this is what we think, but it can't be just one short print. There's got to be some reason for it. So what others would there be? Sometimes we'd seek out if there's consensus. Again, it was simpler in those days that certain dealers had a large inventory of those kind of cards. And their Scourin would have been a Yankee, so that would have explained some scarcity. But when you saw that it wasn't a regional scarcity, so we'd go to press eventually. We had to have some level of evidence, but we're putting it in there. And then if somebody gave evidence to refute it, we could take that back. But that rarely happened, Chris, because
you had more data than anyone else.
The Topps would never correct us. They just weren't set up to do that. And so I was personal friends with Larry Fritsch and all the other big dealers at the time, and they would answer my questions.
It's funny. I assumed all these years that Topps told you, hey, we didn't print in as many 5th series as 4th series, and you just ran with it. But you told them that.
No, I don't even have the records. But
they didn't even the year of. They didn't even have the records.
I'm sure they had it the year of, but it wasn't empirical based on data at the time. But again, the pricing is based on how many cards are out there now. Even if the 5th series, they printed more than the 4th, which they in almost every case didn't. They printed a little bit less each time. And that's evident with your own eyes.
Yeah.
Back those early shows in the hospitality rooms, the guys that were the veterans that were buying collections would put their heads together and you'd see which ones, because those days was set collecting. That's the other thing that really helped me. When you're doing set collecting, you had
Right.
one list from all these guys and you'd find out that, hey, Scour and guys like that are missing an inordinate amount of the time. There was another guy, Jim Kovacs, that was a national dealer in the Midwest, and then he moved out to California, and he basically had albums for each set, and he had cards by number. And when you got to scouring, for every player, the first price would be the price guide price, let's say. And after he sold one, the next one would be plus 50%. The next one would be plus 100%.
Right.
And he would find out that there were certain cards that he couldn't keep in stock, even at double whatever it said in the price. He was a friend. He just said, hey, this is proprietary to me. I said, yes, but it's not going to hurt you. But he was a tough negotiator. But I just say, look, I'm already aware of that. You're confirming what I already thought in many cases. But it was an inexact science. And Topps never was mad at us. They were happy.
I bet
we were possibly even doing some of their work.
That's amazing.
But that makes the hobby interesting. Again, just like you're saying about the Slater and the Hatcher and things like that, this is what makes the hobby interesting. These anomalies and putting it in a price guide, that didn't kill it. That gave it further explanation. That increased the size of the market. Have you lived internationally?
I did. Recently lived 5 years in the Netherlands. That's actually where I started the channel.
How was that good or bad for business for you?
That was a fast turn of events. My wife got a job offer in the Netherlands, and we were going to go for 2 years and then come back. I was going to essentially take 2 years off sports cards and try something else. I tried like day trading the stock market for a little bit and did not enjoy that. I was looking into some other options, but after about a year in the Netherlands, I needed to get back in cards. There's no cards in Europe. And right then COVID hit, so I couldn't even fly back. So I started the YouTube channel. So literally the outcome of me moving to Europe for 4.5 years was that I started the YouTube channel, which has turned into just a massively important piece to my overall business and my marketing. It's really important and I love it. That's what I got out of going to Europe. I couldn't really deal cards very much. I could buy and sell in ComC. And in 2020 and 2021, there were a lot of possibilities for that when everything was going up. But in general, I couldn't do a whole lot from there with cards other than the channel.
Okay. So you were thinking about taking a break or doing something different, but that was before you had this perfect storm, perfect configuration, your persona, the dealing that you do, the YouTube presence, because now you've really hit your stride. So now you don't want to take a break, do you?
No.
Like you're doing something that you're just having fun with and doing well. But before everything fell into place. And so COVID, it looks was a silver lining for you.
It was. It's not that I wanted a break. That's definitely not the right phrasing. It's just my wife got a great job offer and I've lived in Europe before and I've always loved it. She really wanted to live in Europe. I was actually doing well with my card dealing. So I had quite a bit saved up. Actually, I did stash a lot of my cards in the States, and that actually benefited me quite a bit because they all went up in value when I was in Europe and COVID. But it was more just like, hey, I will take it a 2-year window break. And then it ended up being 4.5 because we enjoyed it so much. And the YouTube channel was taking off a little bit. We extended it, but at some point it was time to come home. But it's not that I needed a break. Today, I wouldn't take a break now anymore. Now I just love what I'm doing too much. What are the circumstances around you leaving Beckett? And was it like 100% your decision? Did you continue on in like an advisory role of any kind after, or were you ready to leave?
No, basically the year before, I just was thinking I'd had a heart attack and I don't think I was doing a very good job. I had great employees. They were doing a great job, but my heart wasn't in it as much. I thought my employees deserve an owner, a CEO that's all in. I was all in on the hobby, but like I said, I just wasn't doing fun stuff. I was like an executive. I wanted to be messing with cards. And so I wasn't going to be a very good absentee owner. So it was pretty clear my path to sanity or to get my life back was to sell the company. And I wanted to sell to somebody that would take good care of it, but you can want that, but you're probably going to wind up selling for the highest bidder. So it was very stealth. We hired an investment banker to help prepare our company for sale. And we had a investment book that set forth how we were doing and what we were planning to do. And the employees were going to stick around, obviously, but I owned the whole company and I was going to sell my interest. We had interest from a number of larger entities. One was in the hobby, but we did not consider that because it wouldn't have worked. And then some others that wanted to get into the hobby, and we wound up selling that. They nominally have called me an advisor, but I'm not the owner anymore. They've earned the right to do what they want to do, Chris. If I look over their shoulder, that's actually not helpful. So I'm available to them. They do call me at times. In fact, a number of times over the years, but can you believe it? It's been 19 years.
2005?
2005, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
19 years I've been gone, but they're in town, I'm in town. I
Yeah.
go up there to pick up my grading. I have dinners or lunches with some of the employees. Many of them are still there, guys that were my friends that worked in my regime. So it's very amicable, but I can't micromanage them. I certainly don't agree with everything that's been done over the last 19 years and the last few years in particular, but it's not my call anymore. If I made a choice, I didn't have to sell. Part of me didn't even want to sell because I really thought I'll do this the rest of my life, but it wasn't look like the rest of my life was going to be as long because I was burning my candle at both. So I got the life back, I got margin back, and I'm in a really good place. I've actually become a collector now. So it's collector, investor, dealer. Now it's dealer, investor, collector. So now I can go back to being a collector. I still collect. What's behind me is my card wall, which is some of the cards that I collect. So I still have stuff to show when people come over, but I've got stuff at ComC. I've got stuff on eBay, and I'll replenish a little bit when I go to a show and work the dollar boxes. But it's more just turning it back into a hobby. And that I can do forever. There's no stress there. There's no stress there.
So it sounds like it was clearly the right move to leave. There's no looking back. Or
from whose perspective?
From your perspective. Was there any regrets? Oh, I wish I had stayed. There was none of that.
There are regrets from some of the people we want you to stay.
No, I meant from you.
From me, I didn't have regrets that I should have done this sooner. It just was melancholy. If you have a child and they graduate from college, get married, leave home, start their own family, they're not under your roof anymore. So it's releasing my baby to be an adult company. And it's gone through 2 different ownerships since then. Again, not my call, but I'm happy to be an advisor. I've told them nobody cares more about the brand than I do.
Yeah.
But I can only come in by invitation. If they ask me what I think, which they have a few times, and I'll say this, any veteran hobbyist probably would have said what I said, but they didn't listen. In a couple of instances, I'm not going to get into the specifics, but you can imagine some of them. If they asked me, sometimes it was after the fact, like, we did this and nobody liked it. Why is that? So you should have called me before you did that, because no way. Oh, really? But I think they're on better footing now, and I wish them well. So I'm an advisor. They'll call me if they want. Actually, some of the guys, the grading guys, the price guide guys, I'll have conversations with them. I still have a lot of knowledge just from being around a long time and handling so many cards.